The Bangladesh jet crash occurred on July 21, 2025, when its Air Force F-7BGI fighter jet crashed into a school. This incident happened shortly after the jet took off from an airbase during a routine training flight. We'll look what caused the crash, how did it happen, more details all in the video ahead. At around 1:06 p.m. local time, a Bangladesh Air Force F-7BGI training jet lifted off from BAF base Bur Uttam AK Kanpur in Dhaka. At the controls was Flight Lieutenant Tukur Islam Sagar, embarking on what was meant to be his first solo fighter mission. It was a routine training flight, one of many that take place regularly in the skies over the capital. But only moments after takeoff, something went wrong. A technical malfunction struck the aircraft, causing it to stall and become unresponsive. From the control tower came a swift command for the pilot to eject, but the plane was already flying too low. There simply wasn't enough altitude for a safe ejection. Fully aware of the danger, Flight Lieutenant Sagar fought to regain control. He tried to steer the stricken jet away from populated areas, aiming for open ground. But time and altitude were against him. Sometime between 1:10 and 1:15 p.m., the aircraft crashed near the main gate of Milestone School and College in the Uttara area of Dhaka. It struck the side of a two-story building while classes were still underway. Hundreds of students were inside at the time. The aircraft struck the side of the structure, tearing through iron railings and creating a massive breach in the wall. The impact occurred while classes were in session and the campus was crowded with students, teachers, and parents, many of whom had come to pick up their children. Seconds after the crash, a powerful explosion shook the area, followed by a fire that engulfed part of the building. Thick black smoke poured into the sky and was visible across the Uttara neighborhood, triggering panic and chaos as rescue efforts began. At least 27 people lost their lives, including the pilot and many schoolchildren between 8 and 14 years old. And more than 170 people were injured, many of them in critical conditions. Let's take a quick look at the F-7, which is a Chinese-built multi-role fighter aircraft developed by Chengdu Aircraft Corporation. It is an advanced variant and export version of the Chengdu J-7, itself a derivative of the legendary Soviet MiG-21. The F-7 is designed to offer upgraded avionics, improved pilot interfaces, and superior weapons capability, targeting air forces in need of cost-effective yet capable fighter solutions. Let's look at some of the causes that resulted in this technical error. With time, even modernized fighter jets begin to show signs of fatigue. After over a decade of high-performance operations, materials start to wear down. Structural stress accumulates in key areas like the engines, control surfaces, and hydraulic systems. This kind of fatigue can lead to critical mechanical failures, especially in fast, high-altitude flight. Another growing issue is the availability of spare parts. Since production of the J-7 or F-7 series ended in 2013, sourcing new, high-quality components has become increasingly difficult. Maintenance teams often have to rely on refurbished or second-hand parts, which may not always meet the same performance standards. This raises concerns not just about reliability, but about overall flight safety. There's also a troubling history to consider. The Bangladesh Air Force has experienced several accidents involving F-7 variants over the years. Investigations into past incidents have frequently pointed to mechanical issues as the underlying cause. In both the 2018 and 2025 crashes, the aircraft involved had similar service lifespans, suggesting that aging airframes may be contributing to the pattern. While the F-7 remains a symbol of a long-serving fleet, the risks associated with older military aircraft are becoming harder to ignore. But crashes also affects many of our fighter jets, planes, and helicopters just over the past several months. At Naval Air Station North Island, key hub for military aircraft, you'll find the San Diego International Airport just north of the base. Nearby is runway 29, a critical strip often used by military jets. Here's what happened. Around 10:15 a.m., a U.S. Navy EA-18G Growler from Electronic Attack Squadron V-8Q-135 was in flight when it developed a mechanical glitch, likely exacerbated by weather conditions at the time. Light rain and fog had reduced visibility to just 4 to 8 miles, complicating the situation. When a critical error message lit up the cockpit, the jet's warning systems activated instantly. The two crew members made a split-second decision to eject, escaping the aircraft moments before it plummeted nose-first at a 60-degree angle into San Diego Bay. The plane crashed with its landing gear still deployed, sending a massive plume of water erupting into the air. What's chilling about this incident? The jet went down mere miles from densely populated neighborhoods and the naval base Coronado Airport. Had the pilots ejected even a few seconds later, or had the jet's trajectory shifted slightly, this could have been a catastrophe on the ground. A quick note regarding the confusions and the primary difference between these two aircrafts. The EA-18 Growler is specifically designed for electronic warfare, while the FA-18 Super Hornet is a multi-role fighter aircraft designed for both air combat and strike missions. Interestingly, in the past 2 months, there have been multiple major plane crashes. On January 28, 2025, an $85 million F-35 jet crashed in Alaska. The following day, on January 29, an American Airlines plane collided with a Black Hawk helicopter. Then, on January 31, 2025, a medical plane went down for unknown reasons. In addition to these recent incidents, South Korea experienced a plane crash on December 29, 2024, when an aircraft struck an antenna. Just days earlier, on December 25, 2024, an Azerbaijani plane was hit by a Russian Pantsir missile. And finally, on the 13th of February 2025, we have this most reliable Navy jet crashing into the sea. For the third time in less than a year, a U.S. Air Force F-35 Lightning II, a stealth fighter with a staggering $82 million price tag, has crashed. The latest incident occurred on Tuesday, the 28th, 2025 at 12:49 p.m. during a training exercise at Alaska's Eielson Air Force Base. The pilot managed to eject safely, but the jet was completely destroyed, with its wreckage left burning inside the base's perimeter. This isn't just a string of bad luck, it's starting to look like a pattern. Back in May 2024, an F-35 crashed in New Mexico after a refueling stop, leaving the pilot seriously injured. Before that, in September 2023, a Marine Corps F-35B went down in South Carolina after the pilot ejected mid-flight due to a malfunction. The jet, shockingly, continued flying unmanned for 11 minutes before crashing into a field. Now, in January 2025, the Alaska crash adds another chapter to this growing list of mishaps, sparking even louder concerns about the jet's safety. American Airlines Flight 5342, which we'll refer to as the landing flight, was on its final approach to runway 33. At this stage, called short final, the aircraft was mere moments from landing, flying at an altitude of about 400 feet. This is the most critical phase of landing, where every second counts and pilots are laser-focused on safely bringing the plane down. At the same time, an Army Black Hawk helicopter, identified as PAC-25, was reportedly on a possible training flight. It was flying perpendicular to the flight path of Flight 5342, following the course of the Potomac River. The Potomac River is a designated flight corridor for helicopters, and it's common to see aircraft like this operating in the area. The key difference between the two aircraft in this scenario was their operating rules. The Black Hawk helicopter, PAC-25, was flying under visual flight rules. This means it was required to rely on visual observation of its surroundings to avoid other aircraft. The landing flight 5342 was operating under instrument flight rules, which give it priority over VFR flights in controlled airspace. This system assumes that VFR aircraft will actively maintain visual separation to avoid conflicts. Moments before the collision, the air traffic control tower at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport called PAC-25 to confirm whether they had the other aircraft in sight. PAC-25 responded that they did. At first glance, this seems like an acknowledgement that they were aware of Flight 5342's presence and were taking steps to avoid it. However, it now seems likely that PAC-25 had mistakenly identified a different aircraft, possibly a departing flight from the same airport, and believed that was the other aircraft referred to by the tower. Tragically, PAC-25 may not have realized that Flight 5342 was descending directly into its path. This misidentification could have led to the Black Hawk failing to adjust its course in time to avoid a collision. The Learjet 55, a twin-engine business jet, departed from Northeast Philadelphia Airport on a routine flight to Springfield Branson National Airport in Missouri, according to the FAA. The aircraft, known for its speed and efficiency, was designed to operate in various weather conditions. Takeoff occurred at approximately 6:07 p.m., but shortly after becoming airborne, the jet encountered a technical issue. Weather conditions at the time included light rain and fog, reducing visibility to about 5 to 7 miles. From the top angle, we can see the experienced pilot made a hard descending left-hand turn with no correctional input. This shows the pilot was likely confused or disoriented once entering the cloud and rain. While modern jets are built to handle adverse weather, unforeseen mechanical failures or environmental factors can still pose significant risks. Tragically, just moments into the flight, the aircraft lost control and crashed near Roosevelt Mall, creating a huge explosion of smoke. Let's take a look at a different case scenario of a Jeju Air Flight 2216. This South Korean airline was granted permission to land from the south on runway 1 northward. But control tower cautions against bird activity, so the aircraft made a slight deviation in flight path. The pilot declares Mayday after it hit a couple of birds, and it was instructed to make a go-around and land on runway 19 southward. It was at this moment the airplane encountered another problem with the landing gear, which did not open. Finally, the plane had to make a belly landing with what was supposedly a landing gear failure because it hit in the middle of the runway and crashed into the elevated localizer antenna and concrete, erupting into a huge fireball, while the tail section remained intact. Morning 8:57. A TC broadcasts a cautionary advisory about bird activity in the vicinity of the airport. 8:59. The pilot of Flight 7 C2216 reports a bird strike, declares an emergency with repeated. This is what he said: Mayday, Mayday, Mayday calls, and notifies a TC with the message: bird strike, go around. Just 1 minute after the bird strike at 9 o'clock. The flight initiates a go-around maneuver and requests authorization to land on runway 19, which requires an approach from the opposite end of the airport's single runway that is from the north to the south, which is not the actual landing procedure. Usually then land from the south to the north. 9:01 in the morning, a TC clears the aircraft to land on runway 19, 9:02 local time. The aircraft touches down on the runway approximately 1,200 meters, which translates to 3,940 feet from the threshold of the 2,800 meter. This is around 9,184-foot runway. 9:02 and 55 seconds later, the Airport Fire Rescue Unit completes the deployment of fire rescue equipment. 9:03 Flight 7 C2216 overshoots the runway and crashes into a hill-like structure beyond the runway's end, which later on we came to know that it hit the localizer antenna and its adjacent concrete embankment. And finally, we have a missile attack plane crash. At 10:43 a.m. Kazakh time, which is Russia's Rostov Air Traffic Control Center, received a signal indicating that the crew had decided to divert the flight to Aktau due to adverse weather conditions in Baku and Makhachkala, a city in Russia's Dagestan region. At 10:53 a.m., the Rostov flight director informed Aktau's flight manager that an oxygen tank in the passenger cabin had exploded. This explosion reportedly caused passengers to lose consciousness, prompting the crew to request immediate medical assistance upon landing. Emergency teams were swiftly mobilized at Aktau Airport in preparation for the aircraft's arrival. At 11:02 a.m., the pilots made contact with Aktau Airport's air traffic control tower. Despite their efforts, the crew faced significant challenges during their descent. They attempted to land twice but were unable to maintain altitude or stabilize the aircraft. Tragically, at 11:28 a.m., contact with the crew was lost, and moments later, the plane crashed to the ground. This means the plane was hit between 10:30 to 10:53 a.m. Kazakh time by the Russian anti-air defense system. In this scenario, the plane is flying at a significantly higher altitude, rendering the cannons ineffective. Consequently, the system opts to deploy a missile as the optimal weapon for engagement. The missile is launched vertically from its sealed canister. It uses its advanced onboard guidance system to navigate with precision towards the designated target. As the missile approaches, its onboard sensors continue to track the civilian aircraft, which in this case is tragically identified as an Azerbaijani civilian aircraft. The missile carries a 25-kilogram high-explosive warhead. Upon reaching the target, the warhead detonates, releasing an intense explosion. The explosion occurs near the side of the aircraft, causing catastrophic damage to its tail section. The resultant shrapnel penetrates the fuselage, inflicting severe internal structural damage. This devastating impact destabilizes the aircraft, leading to an uncontrollable descent. The severely damaged plane crashes near Aktau Airport, resulting in a tragic loss of life and a devastating outcome for all those on board. We make original videos from scratch, so please do subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos.